"Sir, you need to step away from the casket." The voice echoed sharply through the bustling terminal. Travelers slowed their pace. Conversations dropped to whispers. A security officer in a pressed blue uniform stood with his hand outstretched toward a Marine in full dress blues, who stood motionless beside a flag-draped coffin. The Marine's eyes didn't flicker, his posture didn't shift. He didn't acknowledge the man in front of him. He was locked in perfect ceremonial stillness, guarding the casket of a fallen soldier being transferred home. "You're blocking the gate traffic," the security officer snapped again, more irritated now, glancing at the line of passengers waiting behind him. "This isn't a military base. You can't just stand here like that." The Marine finally spoke, his voice calm but resolute. "I'm not here to move people. I'm here to bring a hero home." That simple sentence hung heavy in the air, silencing even the clatter of rolling suitcases on tile. But the officer wasn't listening. "Look, I don't care who you're here for. You're disrupting the boarding process. Move to the side." From the crowd, a man in a suit stepped forward. Airport management, by the look of his badge. "We've got rules. No loitering near the gates. I'm going to have to ask you to relocate. You're drawing a scene." A woman in the waiting area gasped softly, clutching her daughter's hand. The child whispered, "Mum, is that a hero's flag?" The mother nodded, eyes glassy. Still, the Marine didn't move. He didn't flinch. He was a tomb guard from Arlington, trained to stand through storms, funerals, silence, chaos. His discipline was not for show. It was sacred. The man in the suit stepped closer, gesturing to another officer. "Escort him out if he refuses. We can't make exceptions." At that, the Marine turned just slightly, speaking not to defend himself, but to honor someone else. "Inside this casket is Sergeant Lucas Mendez, 23 years old, gave his life in Afghanistan, pulling 2 wounded men to safety. I served with him. I volunteered to accompany him home, as is tradition. He asked before his last deployment that if anything ever happened to him, someone would stand beside him every mile. I intend to keep that promise." The crowd was still now. A few people had begun filming, others lowered their heads. But the man in the suit only grew more frustrated. "I don't care what tradition says. This is an international terminal. You are not military police. You do not have jurisdiction here. Stand down." At that moment, a slow voice spoke from behind the barrier. "Then I suggest you let him do his duty." A woman in black stepped forward, her face pale, her hands trembling. "Because the man in that casket is my son." Her voice cracked on the last word, but her spine stayed straight. "And that Marine held my hand when the officers came to my door. He folded the flag at Dover. And now he's keeping watch. You don't get to tell him to move." Tears streamed down her face, and yet she stood tall beside the casket. The man in the suit stepped back, suddenly unsure. The crowd grew restless, murmurs of agreement rising. Someone clapped softly, then another, and soon the entire boarding area was silent, but filled with reverence. One by one, travelers began to move, not away from the Marine, but toward him. Not to block him, but to honor him. A businessman in a blazer removed his cap. A teenage boy stood and saluted. An elderly woman began to softly sing Amazing Grace, her voice shaking but brave. And when the airline finally called for pre-boarding, no one moved. They all waited. Because a hero was being honored, and respect had finally spoken louder than policy. The man in the suit didn't speak again. The Marine stood unshaken beside the casket until the honor detail arrived to move it to the plane. As the casket passed, every person in the terminal stood. Passengers, staff, even janitors, some with hands over hearts, some in tears, all in silence. So some duties don't end when the uniform is folded. Honor is not a ceremony, it's a commitment. And in a world rushing from gate to gate, sometimes it takes a single still figure to remind us all to stop. And remember what sacrifice really looks like. Before we end this story, let us know in the comment, where are you watching from? If this story touched you, subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and drop a karma in the comments below.